What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Notre Dame fans, how about that game? 47-40 victory for Notre Dame over number one Clemson. We have a ton to get to. We are starting to record this at 11:50 p.m. on Saturday night. So we appreciate everyone who is coming on for our live chat and watching this live. Get your comments in. We want this to be a big chat here. If you're watching back on YouTube later on Sunday or Monday, or you're listening via podcast, appreciate that. Please subscribe, like the video, like us on wherever you get your podcast. That's out of the way. Mike, tell me about this game, man. Like, just wow.
Yeah, where do you start, Mike, right? You and I talked offline and we kind of talked about this throughout the course of the week. Like it was going to be maybe an ugly game. And just what an amazing game, what an amazing sport, amazing effort. So many people stood out, so many ups and downs. We got up early like we did, second play of the game, bust out for long touchdown run. And even as a fan watching at home, you kind of got a little comfortable, but it's like, well, we've been here before, and it was up and down. And early second half, Clemson kind of took hold of the tempo and the rhythm. They finally found the rhythm. But yeah, what a game. Good for those guys. Good for all of us. Gosh.
Yeah, Mike, I think we gotta, man. We have our segments of who flashed. We'll go to that later. We'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts, but we just got to talk about this game, big picture. How about this one, Mike? It's Notre Dame's down, man, 33-26. They have the PI get called back, which was ridiculous, and then Skronik drops the fourth down. Clemson gets the ball back with what is like 2.5 minutes, and you're just like, yeah, this one's over. I think I even kind of said something on the message board saying like, yeah, this one's not looking, this one's basically over. But 8 plays, 91 yards, 126 off the clock. Ian Book had the beautiful throw, I believe it was on a post to Avery Davis, and then hit him in the end zone. Man, tell me about that drive, Mike. You're a big Ian Book guy. What'd you think?
I just say what you want about the kid. And, I think Mike Tirico, if he wasn't an Ian Book fan, he became one today. But yeah, he's a winner, man. And it's not pretty. It's just, but yeah, he's got stones, dude. He's got stones. He's got balls, moxie, and it's not pretty all the time. But I do want to kind of piggyback off of what you had said on that long ball to Avery. And it was the second or third time during the game that we saw Book being able to push the ball downfield and really work the seams. And I know that you and I have talked about this on several of these post-game podcasts where too many of our long routes were outbreaking routes, and Book just isn't going to be comfortable enough to pull the trigger and let that ball go. But those down the seam throws, he had one to McKinley that may or may not have been a catch, but we'll count it, and the rest did too.
Right.
But it was just really nice to see us pull out the whole playbook. We ran the ball extremely well. Tremble got involved. Just an amazing game, And just when you thought, it felt like they're getting into the waning moments of the game, that we were maybe throwing the ball a little bit too much. It's like, well, hey guys, let's not forget about the run game. We brought the run game back in. So for Ian Book to play a team like Clemson with all the talent they have, and they did have a couple injuries, et cetera. So what? I mean, to not take a sack, to not turn the ball. Well, I guess he did turn the ball over in the end zone, but what a fluky play that was. Right. But just to be a custodian of the game, custodian of the ball, tremendous. I mean, there's a million things going through my head, obviously, Mike.
Dude.
It's just, so.
I mean, this is the biggest wins for Notre Dame since, 93?
Well, Yeah, I did hear that since '93 we had knocked off a top 5 team. And I think they mentioned it a couple times during the broadcast. Book had never lost at home. So all of the stars aligned. And one of those stars is Trevor Lawrence, and he's out of the game. So it's just like, man, if we're ever going to do it, now's the freaking time.
Right.
And defense played great. ETN got a little bit. He's going to get his, but I think I looked in the first half. I think he was held under. It was like under 20 yards rushing in the first half. So your playmakers made plays. And gosh, man, Koromoa, it's like
Beast.
he makes one play, 2 plays every game, and today he made several. So we can get into. I mean, our 2 playmakers are, Dalen Hayes is turning into a playmaker, kind of reliable to pop up in those big moments as a captain, and that was just amazing to see there at the end. Yeah, just a great. I mean, if I kind of stepped outside before we got on this pod, Mike, and I'm like, how do you sort of encapsulate this win? And it's like, it's a great team win. It's a great team win, a great team effort. That's why we all love the sport. There was ups, there was downs. People picked each other up and kept playing. It was awesome. Awesome.
All right, let's get to a couple of housekeeping items. Man, I'm just so jacked up for this one. This is an exciting.
Catch your breath, Mike.
This is an exciting show here. Something to make you guys aware of. If you watch a lot of our YouTube videos, if you you're on these live broadcasts or whatever it may be, I have up on the screen. There's an arrow. Apologize for our podcast audience, for our YouTube audience. There's an arrow pointing there at that little $ button. Click on that. Basically serves as a tip for us if you want to support Blue and Gold and what we're doing here. That would be greatly appreciated. Maybe that'll go to Mike getting one of those panorama backdrops.
Yeah, we're up at midnight, and we're happy to be awake. Yeah.
And a special thanks to Blakeway Panoramas, of course, for always sponsoring this show. Bring some fighting Irish spirit into my home office, and it really is a beautiful portrait of Notre Dame Stadium. Oh, Mike, what about that defense? So double overtime, Notre Dame's got the lead, first down sack, I believe it was a couple guys got combined, and then you have Dalen Hayes come on the backside of DJ Uiagalelei. Tell me about that drive, Mike. I mean, you maybe think, man, is this going to go into 3 or 4 overtimes? And then, boom, the Notre Dame defense stands up.
You know what's crazy, and I think a lot of our fans will remember this, really the last, there's been a couple epic games, but that 05 Bush push Notre Dame USC game, and I remember on Southern Cal's last possession, I want to say we had 2 sacks on first down and second down. We had a sack. I think Trevor Laws made a sack on that second down, and then they threw that ball to Dwayne Jarrett up the sideline. So after those 2 big plays on their final series, I was going, oh, no. It's kind of holding my breath just because I kind of remembered that. But, yeah, they did the things they needed to do. And, texting buddies throughout the course of the game, I really felt like that last defensive series, I was just like, Cormo or Hamilton's going to come up and make a play and put an end to this damn thing. And it wasn't necessarily those 2, I mean, although Cormo got in on that first sack. But, yeah, I mean, that's what great teams do. You got to kind of soak in the moment. And, I mean, this is what everybody dreams about when you're growing up playing in the backyard. So, but just, great, just a great game all the way around. Kyron played great. Kyron, man, I was watching the game, like that guy's jersey was all nicked up. And my girlfriend's like, you sure that's not from the paint on the field? I'm like, no, honey, those are from
white jerseys.
Those are helmet. I mean, those are face masks,
right.
nicks and marks in there. Just what a game. What a game. And good for Ian Book. Gosh darn it, man. Good for Ian Book. I'm so happy for that kid. I'm thrilled for him, and he deserves it. He really, really does.
All right, let's get into some stats here first. Look, my boss has told me we can't do this, but we're doing it using promo code ND12 for one, people. That gets you, it's $1 a month, basically. So sign up for an annual subscription. Use the promo code ND12FOR1. That's at blueandgold.com. You get all of our premium content, my recruiting coverage, everything on our team side, and our Rockneys Roundtable message board. Mike Goolsby had a chat on, Thursday night with our premium subscribers. So that's a thing we like to do with Goolsby, and thousands of Notre Dame fans get in that private community with a moderated message board. I'm sure there's a ton of message boards out there, but do you want, a lot of them are cesspools, so come at ours. And hang out with our Blue and Gold staff, Mike Singer, Patrick Engel, Loose Emoji, and of course, Mike Goolsby. All right, to some stats have up on the screen for our YouTube audience. Ian Book, 22 of 39, 310 yards and a touchdown. Kyron Williams, 23 attempts, 140 yards, 3 touchdowns. Javon McKinley catching all 5 of his targets for 102 yards. Maybe one of them hit the ground, but that's not here nor there. Mike Mayer, 5 receptions, 67 yards. He had an up and down game, but you still, hey, Notre Dame got the win, so we'll forgive him.
He's a kid.
So we forgive anything. Avery Davis, a guy who I have said has NFL potential from the slot position. Huge night, 4 receptions, 78 yards, a touchdown. Ben Skoranek, 4 catches, 33 yards. I don't have this in front of me, Mike, but you have to assume this is Ian. Obviously, this is Ian Book's best game of his career, but 310 yards, that's, I believe, his most passing yards of this season. So Notre Dame fans, you're getting all upset about a 12-7 win over Louisville. But what did you really want? You wanted to get to the Clemson game undefeated and beat Clemson. You got what you wanted. Ian Book delivered. Just take your hats off to him.
Yeah, Ian Book gets your game ball.
Yeah.
And you could screw the stats, throw them out the window, and he would have had more. I mean, we saw a couple drops tonight, which is going to happen. But yeah, Ian Book gets your game ball.
Yeah.
He should get a gold-plated game ball as far as I'm concerned. So just to hang in there, take some shots. What a game. And I love the scheme tonight too.
Yeah.
We did flash that inside running game that I'd kind of called for.
You did. Mm-hmm.
I love that we got Tremble out in space. We kind of walked him out or displaced him as a tight end, and that was nice to see. And that's another just random thoughts, Mike. Right, random thoughts.
Yeah.
But like Tremble, what a humble kid. Like, he's probably not catching as many balls. He's not seeing as many looks in the passing game as he would inevitably want to see. But for him to just, and I was dead wrong about Tremble just based off his body type. I didn't think he'd be the banger inside that he is. But to continue to do it and just be a stalwart for them in the running game speaks a lot to, his character. And I think Coach Rees has said that, he's kind of the motor of the offense in terms of their tempo and their drive. So I was happy to see him get some balls too today. But yeah, Book's stats would have been even higher. How many yards did he rush for, Mike, tonight?
Let's go ahead and pull that up. Ian Book, 14 attempts, 64 yards. He missed some, he misses some guys. Like, he just does not see them. Maybe gets a little late. But what he does that others just can't do, even though Ian's not the most athletic guy, he just has that moxie. Mike, there are times in the
moxie's the word, Mike, and then I'll cut you off. Don't forget your question, but I think it was a week or two ago we were talking about, he kind of inches up in the pocket, and then he usually scooches out to his left.
Yeah.
And then tonight, with these Clemson pass rushers, and oftentimes we did see a 3-man rush, which gave him more real estate to move around in the pocket, but he was sliding out to his right over and over and over again. So Ainsley did a great job of just continuing to usher that defensive end upfield, which allowed Ian to get out and make some hay. Because he does seem more comfortable playing a little bit of backyard ball, and it seems like Mike too. I think that our receiving core is starting to figure out how to work themselves open and how to come back towards the ball. Early in the season, it's like if they weren't open, Book's eating the ball. We're taking a sack here or there, but it's like, yeah, they're working that scramble drill and they're uncovering back there. So tremendous.
Whew, Mike, are you fired up? I just posted in our comments section. You guys fired up? I mean, does everyone kind of let this one just sink in for a second? Notre Dame just beat the number one team in the country in double overtime. I don't care if Trevor Lawrence was out. That DJ Uiagalelei
He threw
kid,
for 440 yards.
439 yards, 2 touchdowns. The
Yeah.
kid started 2 games in his life, and he hasn't thrown an interception and 350 yards plus in both games. That kid's incredible. He's going to be playing football for a very long time. He's like Big Ben. Like he's just a beast, but even more mobile than Big Ben. I mean, that kid is incredible. So how big was the drop off even Trevor Lawrence and DJ Uiagalelei?
Well, it's when you're talking about a Trevor Lawrence versus DJ. What really sort of stands out is Clemson has better outside weapons. They just do. But the kid's got a hose for an arm. DJ does. But so the drop off isn't as steep with Lawrence out in terms of the passing game because he still has those athletes that can get open. And you saw it. I mean, we got beat deep, and we probably forecasted that was going to happen. I do want to say, Mike, I wished we had left Hamilton to play like a deep half or a deep middle third, kind of play a center fielder role, just to generically say it out loud. Because on a lot of those go balls that our corners were beat on, they had no help over the top. And it was like we had Kyle down in there almost playing like a robber position, trying to jump some routes and obviously help out with ETN. So we had to pick our spots. But where you did see the drop off in terms of Clemson's attack is, and we talked about this, and I know I mentioned this on the boards, is that this DJ kid wasn't going to be the same type of threat pulling the ball and running it. And that bared itself out to be true. So,
Yeah, I believe some of them
there's this guy, I'm just looking at our comments here, they're talking about, Lawrence is a sneaky runner, and he is. I mean, he's a lot faster than he looks, but we did not have to face that type of threat today with him pulling the ball out. So I don't think there was a ton of fall off in terms of, maybe a level of comfortability, confidence overall as a team that you're losing the number one pick in the draft for this game. But a lot going on.
Again, everybody use promo code ND12for1. That is at blueandgold.com. Get your premium access at 88% off. So that definitely get that. That'll give you just an incredible deal through the middle of next season. So make sure to use that. And again, if you would like to help us out, drop a super chat. That's something new we're bringing in. Just a way for you guys, if you enjoy this, obviously everything we do here on YouTube is free, but if you want to just say, hey, thanks and give some gratitude by opening up your wallets, we certainly would not mind. Mike, so when Notre Dame looked like they might lose there at 33-26 and they turned the ball over on downs, I'm thinking to myself, well, look, if you lose this game, then maybe that ACC championship game, assuming Notre Dame and Clemson both win out and you meet each other again in Charlotte December 19th, well, then maybe Clemson kind of comes into that cocky. Notre Dame feels like they have nothing to lose. And then, Notre Dame could certainly go split and win that game. Now that Notre Dame won this one, it's great. Everyone's pumped up. It's the win over number one team. But the goals of a national championship are still very much ahead of you. And I don't know if you can lose to Clemson and still make the playoff. We'll see what the rest of the country looks like. And it's certainly a wacky season. How many games is the Big Ten going to play? How many the Pac-12, like can a 9-1 Notre Dame team get beat out by like a 6-0 Oregon or something like that? Just a bonkers season. But is there anything to this, Mike, about just how hard it's going to be to beat Clemson twice in a season? And you would assume in December, Trevor Lawrence is back. All these guys are back that they were missing in the defensive front. Any thoughts there to my ramblings, Mike, about beating that team twice in a season? This is going to be so tough with how good Clemson is.
I mean, who gives a crap? I mean, we'll worry about it when we get there. We'll get it. And I mean, we'll worry about it if and when we get there. Truly, and I think if Clemson has better athletes outside, specifically at receiver, okay, but we showed today we've got probably an edge, ironically, in our front four who played tremendous today. We've got an edge with our offensive line. So we're always, hesitant to, these teams have got, more talent, that kind of talent gap, that speed sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got more speed, but you can negate some of those things with our strengths. So maybe it's a wash-ish. But maybe a bigger thing with this team and with Brian Kelly specifically is that sort of puckered up, for these big games. And now that you've won that game and you've proved to yourself that you could do it, might be able to go into that second game a little bit more relaxed and more confident, So we'll worry about it when we get there. Yes, It's going to be difficult to beat a team like that twice, especially if they're fully stocked and they have all their weapons back. But again, if they've got their weapons, we've still got ours. And our weapons, in terms of offensive, defensive line, aren't necessarily your stereotypical weapons. But with the right type of game plan implemented, you've got kind of an even slate there.
YouTube, I mean, we are blessed right now. Huge numbers on our YouTube, and we have our first couple super chats. Appreciate it, Jason, and appreciate it, CW, for the super chats here. Mike, how big was that 65-yard touchdown run on that first drive?
Amazing,
for
huge.
I mean, my thought is that is that point. Hey, we hit him in the mouth. We have a lead. We know we can play with these guys. We know we can go toe-to-toe. We're better than them. And Ian Book was incredible to start the game. The offense kind of sputtered in that third quarter when Clemson dominated the time of possession. Clemson played Notre Dame's game in that third quarter.
Yeah, they finally found a rhythm in the third quarter because it was kind of herky-jerky for them throughout the first half. But that first, it was the second play of the game, was it not, Mike? Kyron's long run?
Technically, it was the first because I believe the first play of the game was a holding, so that didn't count in the stat book.
Okay,
So,
it seems like it was 5 hours ago because it was.
Right.
But yeah, I think from that it was like, what a sigh of relief. So like you just let out so much pressure. It's like letting air out of a tire. It's like, oh, okay, right. So we're up by a touchdown. We're not up by a field goal. We're up by a touchdown. And there was a couple instances throughout the course of the game where I felt like we could have continued to be a little bit more aggressive as far as offensive play calling, namely after Owusu-Koramoah forced that fumble. Our next play was a run play. And, traditionally speaking, you kind of take a shot there. So, and I think we were, 3 and outer. We didn't make any hay on that next drive. But, those plays are huge. And quarterback's best friend, whatever sort of generic football analogy you want to use, but to have a running game, and gosh, did Book have time today?
Yeah.
That
offensive line. How have we not talked about them yet?
He had a ton of time. So yeah, I need to rewatch the game. I mean, honest to God, Mike,
how many times?
Should probably, maybe a couple. And as I was watching it, because of the extra time added, my recording stopped. So I had to re-record, my DVR. So to catch that end bit. But yeah, just a great all-around effort. And like big time teams, everybody wants everything to be clean and everybody wants everything to be perfect. I told you during texting during the game this is going to come down to the wire. I told you that.
So that at halftime. Yep.
I told you it was going to be a boat race, and that's pretty much what it was. But like, that's the game of football. There's ups and there's downs, and I did feel like that their effort in the third quarter was deflating, and I was like, oh no, these kids have been here before. They've seen this movie before. Maybe, and I just like, God, guys, don't give in to what you've done in the past. And then come to find out, like at the end of the game, those guys were quitting. So, big thumbs up, round of applause for our conditioning program too, because we were still bringing the noise in the fourth quarter, into overtime, and those guys started falling out. They really did. And that was huge. And that's where you could just lean on that running game, lean on your strength. Like we talked about, lean on our weapons, right?
Mike, I'm looking at not only our YouTube chat, also our message board. And Mike, people love you, right? I mean, they watch this show, they come to hear your comments and to see me look pretty. We've got people making Shane Simon comments because Shane Simon, look, you're a former linebacker and you're critical on your linebackers, right? I mean, you have every right to do so. But we've had people on our message board. Big Beck says, "How about Simon tonight?" I have the YouTube comment pulled up. Shane Simon played great.
People like to have their, their stir the pot or have their whatever. But it's the case in point. Coming into tonight, Shane Simon had 6 tackles on the frickin' season. 6. I mean, that should be a game. That's like a run of the mill game, and we play a different type of scheme, and we rotate guys in and out. But 6 assisted tackles in the game, yeah, I think he played sufficient tonight. I do. I mean, I do think there's a lot of teaching points to some of these games where, there's plays where we're in cover 3, and that's one thing I do think to address to kind of get into the X's and O's of the game. There's several times where we're in 3rd and 7 and we're playing too far off. We're giving too much cushion. There's times where Shane Simon's he's a curl to flat dropper and he's just getting too much width and the receiver's getting open behind him. And it's like, you have to adjust your drop on some of those plays. But I thought he played well. It was more downhill, more aggressive, and just taking away that ETN and filling those gaps. So yes, solid game by Shane Simon. Yes.
Jeremiah Usu-Koramoah,
he did more, Mike. He did more than give us a half a tackle tonight. Yes, in fact, he did. Thank you.
Let's talk about Usu-Koramoah a little bit. He had a huge game. I believe I have the defensive stats pulled up here. 9 tackles, half a sack, 2.5 TFLs, a forced fumble, which I believe that forced fumble is the stat book counts as the kind of the one that just kind of fell into his belly there and returned 23 yards for a touchdown. Usu-Koramoah, Mike, just really the heartbeat of this defense. I believe it was last week after
he made some cash tonight, Mike.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe it was last week's game. We talked about MVPs of the team. You went Hamilton, I went Usu-Koramoah, 1A, 1B. Hamilton had a solid night, 8 solo tackles and a TFL. The TFL was a really nice shoestring play, and then it's like he just doesn't really miss tackles. He's just such a solid player. Tell us about those two guys, Mike.
It's the difference between and again, this is me being critical of the linebackers, but it really comes down to confidence. There was a play where we ran a blitz and then Usu-Koramoah looped out because he had to pull up the quarterback. The dude just knows what he's doing out there, as does Hamilton, and that confidence leads to decisiveness, and that's why you see Hamilton knife in like you do. That's why you see Koramoah knife in like you do. And sometimes with specifically with our linebackers, you see them falling down a lot because they're just they're a little jittery, where you don't have that from your 2 big playmakers on the edge. And Hayes is making a name for himself too. Interesting defensive scheme. Like you saw Foskey dropping out to the flat quite a bit in unique situations. So these are 3rd and longs, and we're dropping one of our best rushers, and it worked out sometimes. Sometimes it didn't, where we're replacing Foskey with a blitzing linebacker. So versus taking a more traditional approach. And they made a nice completion over Foskey. He did his best in coverage, but Koramoah's made himself some money tonight. Even on that pass interference call, it's like, get real. Yeah, they nicked him for a pass interference call, and that was good coverage as far as I'm concerned. But he's a hell of a player. He really is, and he stands out. It just really does.
So let's talk a little big picture, Mike. Not just about this season, but you're a Brian Kelly supporter. You're an Ian Book supporter. Where would you say that this win? I mean, look, quarterback and head coach. That's the name of football. Where would you say this win kind of cements their legacy. You shaking your head there, Mike. What, do you want some love for the linebackers?
Well, just because it's just people, right? It's people. It's human nature. So this is a massive, massive win. But and I'm looking at comments. I'm seeing what people are saying, and it's going to be the biggest win in 27 years. A small little asterisk because Trevor Lawrence wasn't playing. So, but it is what it is. You can't discount the win. It's a massive win, but and I'm just so happy that they delivered because I was like, golly, playing at home without Lawrence, had a couple key injuries, and just to hang in there, and to not fall into the same traps that we had. Like we had every reason in the world to not to give up, but like after that Book fumble, it's like how many fans at home are like, here we go again. Oof. How many fans are like, here we go again? I'm guilty, but to just keep fighting back and keep giving yourself a chance. That drop by Skoranek. Oh, here we go again.
Right.
But somehow, some way, it's tremendous.
Yeah. When Skoranek dropped that pass, first thing I thought of was the Virginia Tech game last year, Mike, when Book found Claypool on that game-winning drive, and I'm just like, oh man, that's a ball that Claypool would have caught. Skoranek doesn't come down with it, but hey, worked out in the end. We're going to go back to our blueandgold.com message board again. To join this community, you can use promo code ND12 for 1 by going to blueandgold.com and using that promo code. ND025876 asks, what's your take on Avery Davis? Is he the wide receiver deep threat we've been looking for? I don't know if he's a deep threat, but he is a big slot receiver. Like the Rogers kid that Clemson had, is probably 5'9", 5'10". Avery Davis listed at 5'11", but a big 202. This is a Avery Davis, a pro Avery Davis show and podcast. We need to give some more love to Avery Davis. Pull up the stats again: 4 receptions, 78 yards. And 2 of those catches were so freaking big. You had the long one down the field on that on the post, and then the touchdown where he found the soft spot in the zone.
Yeah, and the one through that throw in the back of the end zone. He made a tremendous effort to go get that ball. And we're talking about a kid in Avery Davis that is not at all polished. He's still very raw in terms of his career up to this point, having moved around so much. But in terms of like the body type, the way he moves around, he's got a thick lower half. He's almost like an Anquan Bolden type guy. And I don't know. And then think about it, Mike, too. Fascinating, going back to your question about beating Clemson 2 times in a season. You'll have Lindsey back, right? So you will have a guy that can take the top off the defense, because going into this game, we really didn't have that in our arsenal of weapons. So McKinley and Book have definitely worked out some chemistry. We saw another back shoulder fade today.
Beautiful.
So real smooth. It looked like a real football play. You know what I mean? So McKinley and him have a little bit of a trust factor. Seems like Mayer is his safety net. Like when crap hits the fan, he's just kind of looking Mayer's way. Tremble did some damage. I think guys still, though, and I'll still add this on that post where Davis got loose there, right? Touchdown. Or not a touchdown. Got, long ball. He makes his break quick, right? So sometimes when you're watching our receivers run routes, they're trying to make them look too polished. There's too much starting and stopping, and like get through the route. Just get through it. Get yourself open. It doesn't need to look like a workout tape. So, it's tremendous. We didn't see much Tyree today, which is fine.
Two rushes, -4 yards. Yeah, not.
Yeah, and there were like one was kind of a cute sort of jet sweep type play.
Reverse.
But, I don't know if there's any room for those plays in our scheme, Mike. It's just hammer the damn ball. There's like we try to run a draw a couple times there that at the end of the game where it's like just hammer the ball. Stop trying to be cute with these looks. So
question from Gavin Brunhofer here on the YouTube chat. Thoughts on Boston College next week? So the first 6 games of the schedule, you got Duke, USF, FSU, Louisville, Pitt, Georgia Tech. Not really great challenges. Duke and Louisville did give Notre Dame a challenge, but those teams are just not the strongest. But then you got Clemson, obviously, the number 1 team in the country you beat. But then you go at Boston College, at UNC. You got a bye week sandwich in between there. Syracuse, December 5th. At home. Wake Forest game on the road December 12th. Of course, that was the game that was supposed to happen, September 26th, but was postponed due to COVID-19 related reasons. Then the ACC Championship, December 19th. Early thoughts on Boston College game, man. Again, Mike, Notre Dame fans are going to just really enjoy this one, but then it's going to be Phil Jerkovic talk Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Sure. I've said this before. I never beat Boston College in my time at Notre Dame. And famously in 2002, I think we were the number 4 team in the country, undefeated, just knocked off Florida State in Tallahassee. We come home, throw on the green jerseys, and we lost to Boston College 14-7. Lou Holtz has in one of Lou Holtz's books, he talks about like the progressions of a winning team, and maybe the last step to becoming a championship winning team is you have to learn how to handle success. So we've obviously had some very recent success tonight, and going into that BC game, the preparation has to stay the same. The approach has to stay the same, and just go out there and handle your business. We're a better football team. There's no question about that. But Boston College, I've said this before, they're a bunch of pricks, and I mean that. I mean that as a compliment, Mike. Like they're a bunch of pricks. Like they're
Gritty.
They're tough, you know.
Gritty, yeah.
Like they're the type of kid like you beat them in a bar fight, then but they'll pop your car tires or something. They're pricks, you know. So yeah, you definitely have to take them seriously. I think more is probably going to be made out of the Jerkovic, story than needs to be. I mean, he's a really good player, and he's tough too. He's a tough kid. But he plays for Boston College, and Ian Book plays for Notre Dame. We should win the game, but I would very much anticipate it'll be a close game. Because, again, we're coming out of a 2 overtime win against the number 1 team in the country. So that does take quite a bit out of a team from a physical standpoint, mental, emotional. So they're going to have to find a way to handle that success and take a championship approach into that game. But I wouldn't expect it to be a blowout. I promise you that.
Right. Yeah. Question here from Michael Scheller on the YouTube chat. He says, hey, Mike Singer, what does this win do for recruiting for the 2021 finish and 2022? Can Notre Dame now flip some 2021 kids with this big win? Thanks, Mike and Mike. The one thing I'll say is that recruits are a little less reactionary. A lot less reactionary than fans are about one game. They're not going to decide where I'm going to go the next 4 years based on one game. That's not to say one game doesn't matter.
It depends. Can I add in?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
because not to be a jerk, but only one of us has been like a 5-star recruit. So
That's
I
true.
think if the kids were, so who was at the game? Do we have kids at the game, Mike, recruits?
There was one because his brother played for Clemson, a 2022 linebacker that the Irish offered. But no, because of the dead period, can't be in the game.
That's a damn shame.
Right.
Because if a kid was able to, I mean, just imagine if that stadium was full. And if a kid, and this is a non-traditional year, there's nothing traditional about this year, but if there was a kid that was undecided and he gets to soak in this type of environment, a night game, like unreal, right? You might flip a kid. But then on the flip side too, and I heard it myself as a recruit, like for Clemson to hang on to some of those kids, all you got to do is feed that kid's ego over the phone and say, well, if we had a kid like you, we wouldn't have lost the game. That's why we need you to come to Clemson, yada, yada, yada. So really unfortunate that you weren't able to have kids physically there.
Sure. But yeah, going back to that, I think it really could help. No doubt that there's this momentum that I don't know if it's going to make a difference for like a top 100 player like Donovan Edwards in the 2021 class. But look, Notre Dame's got a few spots left. Signing day's like 30 days away, this early signing day. So, it really obviously can only help. And then for the 2022 class, I think that's something you definitely have to take a look at, is that early momentum. Like, again, 2021 class, 30 days away. 2022, you got a year and 30 days. So you got a ton of time to really build those connections. I actually have recruits texting me during the game. I'm not even texting them, but they're so pumped. A DN, Teva Tafiti, a guy I really like down in Hawaii, he said he's watching the game with his dad, just jacked up and juiced. I'm not even texting the kid asking him for his reaction. Which,
How
by
cool.
the way,
How cool is that?
We'll have that article tomorrow. I'll be texting every recruit once I wake up to get their reaction about the game. Notre Dame commits in the 2021, 2022 class, as well as targets in both classes. But I got these kids texting me like, Mike, this is so awesome. So it's neat for me just to have those kids reach out. But
it's tremendous. Yeah. Well, that's Mike. That speaks to the types of relationships that you're building too. So hats off to you, really. Because I mean, these top flight recruits, you'd presume they'd get annoyed by the media at a certain point in time. So that's kudos to you, man, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's go back to our blueandgold.com message board. See what we've got here. RRH1. A huge fan of you, by the way, Mike. He is a Chicago guy. He was always talking to me about Chicago recruits. So, Ray, if you're watching this, shout out to you, my man.
What's up, Ray?
Who's your MVP on defense tonight?
Koromoa. Owusu Koromoa. And Heinisch had a
baller.
Heinisch had a hell of a game.
Baller Kurt Heinisch is, man.
He had a hell of a game. The front seven in general played great, but Koromoa just with two massive impact plays, and we've talked about, and every coach over the course of football history will tell you how important turnovers are, and he created two of them. Scores on one. So if you just pulled out those two games, he'd still get the MVP. Maybe Book gets the game ball, but your defensive MVP is Koromoa. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Mike, let's see what else we got here. We're running 42 minutes. We will go about 10 more minutes or so longer. Again, if you're in this YouTube chat, go ahead and post your questions. Listening back via podcast, we appreciate you as well.
Are we getting any comments on or questions on Book?
The very last comment we just had, Book is definitely is better than that hack Jimmy Clausen. I don't know if you need to call Jimmy Clausen a hack. But yeah, just love. I mean, the Ian Book haters are just not really present right now, Mike. But yeah, ton of love for Ian Book. Do you have anything else you want to add on him?
No, I really feel like that Book is making the most of his ability. And that's, honest to God, Mike, that's all you could ever ask for. You understand?
Sure.
He's making the most of his ability. And he doesn't turn the ball over. And that's, he did tonight, but through the passing game, he just hangs onto the ball. We're playing tremendous defense. We have a quarterback that can move the ball around and doesn't turn the ball over. And I'm sorry, but if you play football like that, you give yourself a chance to win. You really, really do. And I don't want to also – I made a mental note as I was watching. I wanted to give our kicker a shout-out.
Yeah, Jonathan Duower.
Talk about having some stones. He's knocking down 45-yard field goals like they're nothing. So tremendous job by him too. Tremendous job by him. And these are all confidence builders. So if you do get into that sticky situation down the road, maybe round 2 with Clemson, you're confident in your kicker. We can still put points on the board. So absolutely.
Jonathan Duower hit field goals of 24, 27, 45, and 44 yards out. He missed a 57-yarder at the end of the first half. We're not going to fault him too much for that. Question from Be Amazing on the YouTube
Yeah, I saw
chat.
that, Mike.
Hey, Mike and Mike,
Rees.
how hot is Tommy Rees as an offensive coordinator right now? Mike, It's quite a world we live in, and with people's comments and on social media and whatnot. I just see all this stuff, and it's like Notre Dame's in overtime with the number one team in the country, and people are just like trashing Tommy Rees. I'm like, one play, let's just throw out the entire thing. One play didn't work, but let's just trash the guy. What did you think about the offensive game plan he called today?
Is a good game plan. I do feel like as much three-man rush, and I literally ran to get my phone because I was charging my phone. I ran to get my phone, and we ended up scoring there at the end. And I was like, gosh, quarterback draw, quarterback draw, quarterback draw. But he's developing. I think we will see more. You're going to see more deep shots, and you should see them down the seam. So previous weeks, previous iterations of various game plans, everything was out breaking. You're running flags, and we're going to see more posts. I can almost assure you of that. But yeah, I think he's doing a fine job. I really do. The only tells that he has, when Mayer dropped that touchdown pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or what would have been a touchdown pass.
Right.
He ran the same formation and he ran the same route combination on 2 consecutive plays. So I think previously, the play prior to that, Book had to scramble and kind of threw it away. And he came back the very next play. I think there might have been a timeout, and he called the same play. So there's a little bit of predictability there from Rees. He loves to run the ball into the boundary, is a thing that I've seen over and over and over again. We run the ball into the boundary. But I think he's doing a fine job. I really do. And we've still yet to have a full. We don't have all of our receivers yet. We haven't.
Right.
So once you get a Lindsey back, that should open things up a little bit more as well.
I mentioned the 57-yard kick that Dwyer missed, but I didn't talk about how that play ended because I believe it was Amari Rogers fielded it, and then Jay Bramblett made a touchdown-saving tackle. So love to Jay Bramblett, the holder and punter for the Irish from Alabama. Great
for
play
sure,
by that young man. There was
well,
one.
and so that's that we could dissect that a little bit, Mike. So I'm trying to play it back in my head. We're going into halftime, right? I think we had a timeout, and I think there was like 8 seconds.
There's
7 seconds.
I remember 17 seconds. I want to say Book scrambled for about 4 yards or so, and then it went down to 3 seconds. Then you kicked the field goal. So I would have called.
But we let it go.
Yeah,
we let it go down.
I would have called
so
a timeout.
I felt, as would I. Yeah, called the timeout. Try to get a pass to the sidelines. I mean, you're asking an awful lot of a kicker to kick a 57-yard field goal there. And hell, I mean, as wild of a game as you knew this was going to be, you almost gave ETN a chance to score on a crazy, crazy play. So, yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more management. And, gosh, we need to talk about the freaking refs, Mike. What the hell was
terrible.
that, dude?
I mean, the reviews were terrible, but the PI that got picked up, Mike, if that was on Brian Kelly's sideline, does that get picked up?
I don't know.
Dabo
I don't
was
know.
yelling.
I think not that I have any empathy for referees or pity for them or whatever, but if that was a bad call, so be it, right? It was a mistake. It was a mess. But there were other plays earlier in the game, previous plays where, like McKinley's catch, where he sort of double caught the ball, amazing effort, and again another deep ball down the seam. I don't think that was a catch. They gave it to us. So if we got screwed on a PI penalty that way, so be it. I feel like it was the end result of the plays. It might have been a wash in terms of penalties, picked up flags, etc. But just I don't understand why refs need to insert themselves into the games like the way they do. You've got an epic football game going on. Like, stay out of the way, dude. Like, you're screwing it up. Like, you're screwing it up for the kids on the field, and you're screwing it up for us watching at home,
Question I want to get to from the YouTube comments from Andres says, for Goolsby, how does the Notre Dame make adjustments for future run-in with Clemson with Trevor Lawrence at a neutral game location? Any thoughts there, Mr. Goolsby?
How do we make adjustments for for the future with Trevor Lawrence. The biggest difference off the top of my head, and I'm not putting a game plan together, but you have to account for his ability to run. That's the one thing. So whereas we left Hamilton in the box a little bit to help shore up with ETN, he was kind of floating around there, almost as like I said, kind of a robber type role. You're gonna have to change the way your defensive ends come off the edge. They can't crash down on ETN like they did today, just basically selling out. So they're gonna have to take a different approach there. Offensively speaking, a lot more of the same. Probably delete some of these kind of cutesy running plays that we've seen, and just stick with the hammer, hammering the ball inside. But defensively speaking, you just have to account for his ability to run the ball. And DJ did an amazing job today. Yeah. For a second start, throwing the ball for 440 yards against a really, 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 really strong defensive unit in Notre Dame and a top 5 team. So that's the one element that you're going to get outside of just the confidence that Trevor brings to the team going into a second matchup is going to be the element of him on the ground. Because today it was like Travis Etienne and their receiver Powell. It was just it was like a couple players making splash plays, which kept them in the game. And then you just add another type of splash player in Trevor. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you're going to have to account for him on the ground more so than you did DJ today.
Sure. One more thing for Mr. Goolsby, and we're going to get out of here again. If you want to leave us a super chat, if you've been watching, we would certainly appreciate you just dropping us a few bucks to help support this channel. Someone messaged here. Let me pull it up on the blueandgold.com message board, mentioning the word vindication. This is a Hond. Is this vindication for Ian Book? He can claim the top win since 1993. Let's end the show talking about Ian Book, Mike.
Let's do that. I think that's a great subject matter. So this is an interesting conversation.
To say the least.
Well, a former quarterback friend of mine who played at Notre Dame. We were just talking about quarterback play and sort of how they should be measured or how they should be judged. And he's like, it shouldn't be statistics. It should be winning. Like that's quarterback's ultimate job is to win. In Book has won a ton of games, and it hasn't been pretty. It hasn't been like knock your socks off in terms of his athleticism or his arm strength or any of this stuff, but he's a winner. And so, yes, that's like legend status, dude. You knocked off the number 1 team in a double overtime game. So it should absolutely be vindication. I mean, I think that come next Saturday, if he throws a couple interceptions, it'll be right back to the normal approach or the normal the way people typically look at Ian Book. But we should be grateful, man. We really should. It's just he lacks some physical traits and he lacks a little bit of pocket presence and this and that. But he's a gamer and he keeps showing up. And yeah, I'm just an Ian Book fan. And if you're a Notre Dame fan, we just beat the number 1 team in the country. And he's been at home for 3 years. Yeah, it's like I think we all owe him not a debt of gratitude or anything, but yeah, give the guy his freaking due, man. Give him his due. And all this, and the other thing too, that's one of the things that I love most about the game of football, Mike, is that it is a team effort. It's like, well, if Book hadn't fumbled in the end zone, we wouldn't even be in the overtime. It's like, yeah, well, if Eichenberg wouldn't have got a false start on that one drive, and if this wouldn't have happened, if this kid would have dropped the ball, it's an assemblage of plays. It's like all these little individual moments throughout the course of the game. So it's easy to put it on Book for, oh, he screwed this up or he did that. But then you forgot about that drop on 3rd and 7 in the second quarter. Like that mattered too. You know what I mean?
But the quarterback is what people see the most. He gets the ball the most. The camera's always on him. So yeah, people are just quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators. They're not They're not really picking out plays of the outside linebacker or what the corner's doing. If he's not really in the play, it's just kind of
Well,
one of those
I
things.
think too, like with NBC's broadcast today with that sky cam, and that you were getting the tight copy, like the end zone view, so you could see whether kids were open or whether they weren't. And again, go back and watch the game. I'm sure a lot of us will. Plenty of times out there, the kids aren't as we like to. They're not open per se. You might have been able to fit a ball in there, so it's not all on book. It's really not. But I do think in the future we're going to see some shorter kind of throws and more of him working the seams. It's just an easier throw for him to make. So I look forward to seeing more of that.
Yeah, Mike.
I'm sweating, Mike.
Me too. I'm in a suit here. No one needs to know what pants I'm wearing because it definitely doesn't go with what's up top. But yeah, Mike, I want to keep talking book. I want to keep talking the rest of the season, but we've gone 55 minutes here, so we're gonna sign off. Everybody, we appreciate if you're listening via podcast. We appreciate that we have thousands of people tune in to each podcast, and of course we post this in podcast format. We have the Irish Huddle that runs twice a week. We have a recruiting show with myself and Patrick Angle that runs every other Tuesday. Use promo code ND12 for one. It is not going to be around past this weekend, everybody, so use the promo code. If you have any questions about it, you can reach out to me directly. My email is msinger@blueandgold.com. You can always find me in the YouTube comments of all of our videos. We post daily content on our YouTube page. Again, blueandgold.com is your home for Fighting Irish coverage. For Mike Goolsby, I'm Mike Singer. Appreciate everyone for watching.